was someone like Barea like at that time? We've seen the videos. I've seen the state championship games, and you see a guy. The attitude has always been the same, right? And I think that's why I know a lot of people. Your main persona in the basketball world is how much pride you take in Latinos. And coming here to play basketball and making a name for themselves, making a life for themselves, whether they come from Dominican Republic, whether they come from Puerto Rico, or just anywhere. Because a lot of people associate you with Puerto Ricans, right? But you've brought a lot of Hispanics from many different, all over. So, now. And I know you take a lot of pride in that in itself, and being a Hispanic American from Miami, right? What is that?
Well, it's I came from Cuba, Danny, when I was 3 months old. So, my Spanish, the only reason why I've kept my Spanish is because I'm dealing with kids like that.
Right.
But, I have 3 kids that barely speak Spanish. And so I'm very Americanized from that standpoint. And so I haven't lost my Spanish. But, yeah, it's been a thing where there's a lot of kids out there that, they're looking to come to the States and be able to meet goals and dreams. And to us, it's been about changing lives. Lives that we've changed. The kids we talked about, and then of course the last one is Norchad Omir, which is a very interesting story, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, Barea. It's funny because when Barea came, and I got interviewed so much when Barea was down here, and then beat the Miami Heat, and I tell the story about when he got off the plane. I looked at him, and he walked towards me bow-legged, because he kind of walks like little bow-legged. He's 5'10". I thought it was a joke. So I called the guy, and I said, listen, who did you send this? Did you send me Richie Cunningham from the Happy Days?
Yeah.
Because this guy doesn't look like a basketball player. Think about it. 5'10", maybe 150 pounds soaking wet, walks bow-legged. Didn't look anything like an athlete. And the guy, no, he could really play. He could really play. And I'll never forget.
He played with fire.
He played with fire. And I used to live in a cul-de-sac, and I had a basket out there, and I made him take some shots, which I really couldn't tell by taking shots. But oh my, once he dressed up, I think his first game, he had like 33 and 14 assists.
Yeah, quickness, speed.
Quickness, speed, and heart. And I'll tell you who J.J. Barea is. So, later on the season, he was diagnosed, Danny, with mono.
Oh, wow.
With mono. And this was before our playoff run. This was his senior year when we won the state championship. And the doctor called me and he says, hey, listen, you can't play this kid. He says, if this kid gets hit in the spleen area, he's going to die. And I was going to take the accountability for that. So I called mom and dad. I said, listen, we're playing in the playoffs. We can't play. Don't worry about coming down. JJ's not going to play. And he says, they both said, Marta and Jaime, which is their parents, they said, well, let me call the doctor. Doctor told him the same thing. So I go to JJ and I said, of course, this guy has like a whole bunch of spots in his body and stuff like that, things that you would get from mono. And he says, Coach, I'm playing. He goes, no, you don't understand. If you play and you get hit in your spleen, you're going to die. You're not going to play. But, Coach, no, you're not going to play. This kid for a whole week, Danny, true story, a whole week, convinced me to play. Now, of course, the only way I would play him if I would get a waiver signed by mom and dad, and we used some protection for him to make sure he didn't get hit in the spleen. So, we make a run. We make it to the state championship. And in the state championship, he had lost about 15 pounds. So,
because I saw the state championship on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he looked so thin. And
he lost 15 pounds during that time.
You could tell,
So here's a 5'10", 130, 135-pound kid that just lost 15 pounds because of mono. He goes out there, and he puts on a show. His first game, I think he had a triple-double.
Yeah.
Second game, he came pretty close to a triple-double. And then, I forgot, we beat some team out of Orlando by 30. And he played, and he said, Coach, I'm not letting you down. I'm not letting the team down. I am playing.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't tell you the heart J.J. Barea has.
Yeah.
I don't know what it does. And so, to me, it's about heart. It's about, and excuse me my French, but it's about cojones, right? He has them both. And
to go up against LeBron, you got to have those.
Yeah, you have to. And he had a great year, and then he moved on to Northeastern. When he moved on to Northeastern, he broke a lot of Reggie Lewis's record. And as people know now, he went undrafted. And remember that it was down to him and another dude from Oklahoma, Ali Aji, which was a 6'9" big. and we talked every day. And I said, what do you think? He says, I don't know, man. It's 50-50 kind of stuff. Then he made the ball club as a free agent. And then, he made the ball club. And I remember one day he calls me. He says, oh, man, I'm a little bit down. He says, they're sending me down to the D League. He says, you want to see how I do in the D League? And I says, I'll meet you up in Texas. So I flew to Texas, to Dallas, and I met him there. True story, Danny. He played on a Friday, and he played on a Sunday. Friday, he goes for 40. Sunday, he goes for 40. And I'll never forget, the head coach at that time was Sidney Moncrief. Sidney Moncrief had played in Milwaukee, great coach. And he calls me Sunday night and says, I'm back going to Dallas. They retired his jersey in Dallas, still retired, based on his 2-day performance. And they called up Rick Carlisle, and they said, what are you doing? Why are you sending me a kid here that had back-to-back 40 games? This kid should be in the NBA.
Yeah.
So went back to the NBA, and he was great. And then he went on to have some solid years. And then, of course, in 2010, they make the run, which I was with them,
right.
the majority of the time. They go to the Lakers. And I don't know if you remember this, but, when he went up for this layup and Bynum close-hanged him in the neck.
I do remember this,
and he fell backwards. And I remember talking to his father. He says, hey, he better not drive anymore. And I says, Jaime, you don't know your son. The next possession, he's going to take it back to the basket again. And he did. And
no fear.
No fear. And
he already beat the odds at that point.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing really to – because, being 5'10", you're not the greatest athlete, to be in the league with some of the greatest.
Right.
Yeah, it's an already amazing accomplishment.
100%. And they swept the Lakers and Kobe had a lot of nice things to say about him. And then they went to Oklahoma, beat Oklahoma.
Rest in peace, Kobe.
Yeah, and then rest in peace for sure. Great guy. And then they played Miami.
Right.
And I was just so
that's
excited.
a highlight, yeah.
Yeah, I was like a kid in a candy store. I get to see JJ, and he's in my backyard. And I'll never forget this other story most people might not know about. And I know you remember the series, Danny, but they were down 2-1. They were down.
Yep.
Miami was up 2-1.
Yep.
And in a practice, Carlisle makes a decision and goes up to a Hall of Famer, Jason Kidd, and he says, Jason, we're going to put you to play the 2. Now, think about it. You're telling a Hall of Fame point guard.
One of the best
ever. You're going to play the 2, and we're going to run all high pick and pop action with JJ and Dirk. And then, Jason is playing the 2. So he goes nuts. He goes absolutely nuts. And they win 3 consecutive games. Now, think about it. You're down 2-1. You win 3 consecutive games. That was LeBron's first year at Miami. They were loaded. And his numbers were like, I remember it was like 17 and 10. He had a double-double.
Yep.
Then he went for about 18 and 7. In the last game, he was also in double digits, and he went on, and they beat the Miami Heat.
There's a story that he went into the locker room and said something to LeBron.
That's correct. He went into the locker room, and he told him, hey, it's not happening today.
Yeah. You know how much confidence you got to have to do that?
Yeah, to
absolutely. Go into the big 3 and just tell him that?
And they put everybody on him, Danny.
Yeah.
I mean, they started with
I remember. He had an amazing series.
They started with somebody else, and then all of a sudden they're putting weight on him.
Yeah.
They're putting, all kinds of guys on him.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't stop him. And then after that, of course, he gets that big contract in Minnesota, goes to Minnesota, and then comes back to Dallas. But, yeah, he was special. And then, of course, played 15 years in the league. People don't realize the kid played 15 years in the league. Think about it.
That in itself is a feat to have to keep a job.
5'10", whatever, non-athlete, playing 15 years in the league and being white, right? I think at one time.
Well, what I'll say about this too is the strongest feat about having 15 years in the league is not only just because once you get to like year 13, 14, 15, you're already dwindling, right?
Right.
What keeps you having a job is your character and how you are in the locker room, what kind of professional you are. So that's a testament to just the kind of individual he is. Without you know that the guys that are still in the league at that point. That their career is already at they've hit the plateau, right? There's not much more the franchise can get out of you as a player, but your level as a professional, your level as a human being to the locker room, to the organization means a lot. And just to keep a job around that time frame, you're like, hey, this guy is, you know, a constant professional.
Yeah, and you got to maintain yourself. I mean,
Exactly.
what's the average years people play in the NBA? I want to say 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, it's something like that.
So this dude plays 15 years in the league.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. One of the most incredible story that around basketball that I've been around and people and he's loved in Dallas and he's loved in a lot of places and I just ran into him in 3-on-3 in Puerto Rico. He's just, you know, he finished his career playing the BSN, and now he's managing a team out of Puerto Rico, and he's kind of commuting back and forth. Just
I thought he was like coaching with Dallas. What was he doing?
He was offered.
Okay.
He was offered, but he didn't want to be one of those coaches that sat on the second row.
Okay.
Okay. So he said, no, I'll come back to that if I ever need to. So he's going to be somewhat involved. Has a beautiful family. He has one boy that's going to be a great basketball player. He's married to a
beautiful wife.
Yeah, beautiful wife.
Miss Puerto Rico, I believe, right?
Well, the first one that he went out with was Miss Puerto Rico and Miss Miss Puerto Rico, and she was also Miss Universe.
Miss Universe, wow.
Yeah, and they had a boy.
Yep.
And the boy is really good. His name is Sebastian.
He's currently playing in Miami, correct?
He's in Miami.
Yep.
He goes to school in Miami Country Day.
Okay.
And oh my, does he have those genes?
He's got the quickness and the speed.
The quickness and the whole thing. He's going to be special. And then he married a Miss Puerto Rico as well. Right. And then with her, they had 2 kids, a girl and a boy. So, you know, he lives in Miami now. He bought a house in Miami, and this, you know, Miami is his home right now.
Yeah.